job and ADHD matters. It matters because there are millions of people being affected by this condition, and there are more millions of people who are unaware that you're affected by this condition. And going into the professional world and going into employment it's kind of scary when you think about that. The economy has lost billions of dollars due to a misunderstanding and a disconnection between HR department, higher up management, and those who struggle with ADHD or some sort of executive function. And as much research as I do about organization and nonprofits or for-profits, businesses, as much as I search for those when it comes to educating HR, educating upper management, there's not that many. That's really tough to see. I think it's another reason why I try my best to pump out these videos is because, I don't know, maybe somebody in management or HR or someone who leads these organizations will see it, open them up to an algorithm to better understand their employees that do struggle with this. The fascinating thing is that being a therapist, working with low income, low socioeconomic status, you see a lot of people who are on this spectrum of ADHD, whether they know it or not, whether their doctor, psychologist, or therapist diagnoses them or not, whether the professionals are aware of it or not, they're still suffering. And there's a disconnect between them and future employment, or even finding meaningful employment, something that they think they have a talent or a knack in, and they need a little bit of an accommodation or a system to help support them. So with all that money that's being lost and working as a mental health therapist, I meet so many people who feel like they can't provide the bare minimum at their job. They'll tell me the lights are too bright, they have sensitivity to all these sounds, smells. There is so much going on in their environment. It's as everything is turned up. We know that this is the brain of someone with ADHD or some sort of cognitive difficulty. We know that there are processes in the brain interconnected that depend on one another. And if one of those is struggling in that portion of the brain, other areas can't necessarily do their job optimally. We know that the mind of someone with ADHD is aware and scattered and dysregulated in a way where it's not one thing that you're focused on in your job, it's about 7 things. And it's hard to pick and choose which one, so you jump through each one and task switch. And you end up not putting out that quality that you know you can do. And then you end up with tension headaches. I get them right here all the time. And then you're stuck. How good accommodation comes in and different frameworks that can be supportive is providing some sort of guidance or letter or note or information, education to HR and employers to help reset a particular standard and systems that can work for you. For instance, for those who are uncomfortable or don't think they can receive accommodations, it's important to have some sort of relationship with your management. Relationship can mean a lot of different things. Relationship can mean closeness when it comes to professional activities. It could mean projects that you'd like to talk more about with your upper management. It could mean being curious about your openness that you can be with your manager, because if you have that connection with them, you'll want to give it a try. You'll want to be forward if you want to let them know. You know, sometimes I struggle with focus on different tasks, and I know that's part of the job description, and I know I've been here for a few months, but I think it's important that you stay informed as my leader in this, so that you can be aware that there are times I do struggle. And here are the 6 or 7 things that I do to help manage that. But by letting you know that this is what I struggle with really does help me, because my goal is to have some sort of understanding. And I know this is news to you, but it's important that I actually share this so that I'm not completely alone with this. be honest, I do my own work. I'm getting tested. I'm working with a psychologist, or however deep you want to go. And it's important. It's important to me, this job. It means a lot. And I want to let you know that if I really do struggle, it helps me when my management can either check in with me, not necessarily micromanage, just ask how I'm doing, acknowledge that my breaks are really important, acknowledge that when I have lunch, that's when I'm not working, I'm resting my brain, or that sometimes you'll notice that my lights are off in my office because I'm trying to rest my eyes from all the fluorescent lights. I hope one day employers, the ones that might need it, can understand the severity of someone who's trying to make ends meet, who's trying to find a job, who's trying to work with their brain to have a system that works for them. Here's a few things I notice at my job that can help you with your ADHD that I've done for my own. And the first thing is finding a job that really works with your brain and not necessarily against it. Now, I'm a clinical mental health therapist. I work in an area where there is a lot of uncertainty, which is really good for a brain that acknowledges that uncertainty kind of brings this energy. I suppose you know what I'm talking about when there's surprises that happen that can give you some sort of interest. Because usually if it's the case, if you're task switching between different things and they're all priority at your job, it can bring some sort of excitement. Yes, it can promote burnout if you're not careful. But for the most part, when there is randomness happening at your job, you thrive sometimes. For instance, there are days when I'm just typing my notes, taking a few phone calls, going to meetings, and then out of the blue, I get a call or someone is in the office in an intense crisis. And what does that require of me? It requires me to stop everything that I'm doing and to hyper focus on that one area. And I do it diligently every time. Or I ask for help diligently every time. So if you're in an environment where there can be random things occurring, which can happen at most jobs, you thrive there. So that's something to look forward to. Another thing to acknowledge at your job, you want to work in a space with a flexible environment. For instance, I used to sit at a desk. I never wanted to work at just a desk job. I was up and moving most of my life in sports and activities, always on my feet. And at my job, I remember one time seeing somebody standing at their desk and they had some sort of lifter that lifted up their computer that required them to stand up so that the keyboards could match the length or the height of how they were standing. And I thought, that's something that I think would be helpful for me because I got a lot of energy and I stand a lot. And when I burn that energy, I feel balanced. It helps me, it's called attenuate. It helps me kind of lower the volume of everything else around me and focus on the thing in front of me because I'm kind of getting out those jitters. So I talked to my upper management and I said, it would be nice to have a standing desk and here's how it could help me. And a couple of years later, we got them. Everybody got them. It was really nice to see that maybe, just maybe, my comment was taken into consideration. At least that's what I like to tell myself. So I'm standing most of the day, and then I sit down when I work with my clients. So that's the beauty of it. And then I go right back to standing, and it feels really good. And my productivity has gone up, which is a great outcome. Another thing that I've noticed at my job is the importance and acceptance of time. I've talked about this before on this channel, that time is almost an illusion with people who have very unique brains like you and me. Time is a construct that doesn't seem to exist. And because of that, we have to acknowledge all the clocks and the time around us at our job, in our vehicles, on our watch, as we go on our way to work. And because I say that there is this change of time, it's important to acknowledge because you're going to be working in a professional atmosphere that have deadlines, and all that has to do with is time. So all my clocks in my office are set up in a way that helps me move forward when it comes to time. There's a clock set up in my office, set up 20 minutes behind, so that I am 20 minutes ahead when I need to get somewhere to a meeting. I have a watch, a smartwatch, that helps me not only navigate on the road to get to the job. If I find myself a little bit of a headache and I want to be on autopilot, I watch, it vibrates and it lets me know, you need to turn here, you need to U-turn here. This is the distance that you have from your job. Reminders that are set on my phone, when my phone is set on my desk, face up, so when that reminder goes off, I can see the message on there, big and bold, to let me know this is what's happening next in your day. I have a physical calendar to my left-hand side, always at my left-hand side, open up to that just one day, so I'm not inundated with the entire week. And what that does is it helps me acknowledge that there's just one day to focus on. I don't need to focus on tomorrow. I don't need to focus on yesterday. If I have a project that's due that week, I will open it up. I will open up my planner to show at least the due date of that, so I can acknowledge that's important, that I have to take a step today in order to get that done in the future. And so having that understanding and concept of time, the concept of using your environment to your advantage, setting reminders, is all vastly important when it comes to your employment with ADHD, and just kind of supporting your executive functioning, because a lot of what you have to do is managing different systems that can help support you and better your time and your energy when you are at your job. I hope some of the things I shared today was at least some use. They work for me because I know myself. There are many things that will work for you because you know yourself. So the good news about that is that there are going to be some things that you're going to not have to learn or relearn because you've already acknowledged what works for you. And maybe there's a few things in these videos that I share that can work for you on top of what you already know. Don't count yourself out. There's one thing I've had to really encourage myself is self-compassion and knowing how I can affect my own environment. It used to be the case where I would just blame the environment or others, and I think it worked in a way where I gave myself some sympathy and empathy, but it kind of met a ceiling where I then had to acknowledge to myself, okay, there are some things that I personally have to take responsibility for, not because I want to, because I really have to. And just stay encouraged and practice self-compassion by acknowledging that these things are really tough and you have the capacity and ability to manage it and get through it. Hope that helps.